welcome back to the Roundtable RRR episode. No, I'm just kidding. I was just wanting to see if that would boost the views. Didn't think it happened, but maybe. Welcome back. This is the first ever 6 group of people on the Roundtable. The table's a little full tonight because one of the weeks we had 4 because a person dropped out, and then Michael Campbell has still never been seen again since that day.
He gave
us an Australian movie and never showed up.
Maybe that was on purpose.
I think so. I think it showed. He showed us kangaroo hunting and said, I'm just not going to show up. Got Tim back on the show. Tim, your second episode.
Yeah.
What did you bring today?
My second episode. I feel like I've been here with all of them, though. I edit the show, and
yes, you do.
This has been some great conversations, and I really like the show. But I brought The Fifth Element as my film for tonight.
He's double bruised up on the show. He's
double bruised
and
90s.
So you picked up. I wonder what you'll bring next time you're on the show. I can't wait. 16 blocks, it will be a blast.
Please, yes.
That's outstanding.
Next, we got Scott. Scott's been here for every episode except for 1, I think. Maybe 2. I don't know at this point.
2,
but
yeah.
How are you doing today? And what lovely gem did you bring us today?
Oh, I'm glad you've already given your opinion on the film. That's great that you enjoyed it so much, Cody. I picked the Brandon Cronenberg film from 2020, Possessor, and I'm sure everyone here enjoyed it.
We had a blast. Next, basically, those are Brian. He's been on, I think, every episode besides 2 of them. How are you doing, and what'd you bring?
I'm doing all right. I'm glad to see Scott back after he took, last month off. But don't worry because, somebody took your place and gave me a horrible movie to watch. But now I'm here.
You almost quit the show.
I almost quit the show. I brought 1990s Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead.
Yes. Bill! I was waiting for Tammy and the T-Rex. It did not show up.
I thought we were supposed to bring good movies.
Well, some
not always.
Some
I
don't remember that rule. Some people don't ever remember that.
I like hot diarrhea films.
I brought Vampire's Kiss last time, so come on.
There you go. So I did not bring hot garbage. I actually keep with the 90s aesthetic that is predominantly this episode. I brought 1994's Fresh.
Yes. Payson, what did you bring and how are you?
I'm doing well, Cody. Thank you. Excited to be on. I brought 1995's Dead Presidents, directed by the Hughes brothers.
Nice. And my movie is 3 Days of the Condor. Lovely film from Robert Redford. And that's what we're going to be starting with. I've referenced this movie a lot since being in the community. Because there's a movie that I say it's very similar to, and people roll their eyes and say, I'm never watching that. I'm never going to watch that movie because if it's that close, I don't want to. But it is. I mean, at the end, it inspired whatever it was, but it inspired Captain America, the Winter Soldier, 3 Days of the Condor. Basically, the reason why I brought it is I think, I'm pretty confident that the 70s are one of the best decades of cinema. They have, and especially of the crime, that genre, I absolutely love. And this is one that took me by surprise. Basically, why I picked the movie is because I think the way it is inspired spy or espionage movies through. I think this is a direct line back. You can see this about the entire organization turning against the one man who he doesn't know how to trust, the way they're able to build the tension throughout the movie. Fantastic. We'll go back to everybody. Overall thoughts on 3 Days of the Condor? Like, dislike? Sidney Pollack directed it, so that's fun. Have at it.
Yeah, I'd never seen this before. I didn't know there was this Winter Soldier comparison until you had said it at some point semi recently. I can see it, especially because of the Robert Redford connection, but I thought this was really great. I haven't seen a ton of Sidney Pollack stuff. I think he did The Firm, right, with Tom Cruise?
Yes.
So I watched that during COVID, and I really enjoyed that. I thought that was a really good movie, and so I really liked this as well. This was I liked that because after I had heard the like Winter Soldier comparison, I was like, okay, is this going to be like a big like action movie then? And it's not. And I love that kind of like, I love the fact that it's this like very 70s, I feel like movie. Redford, can we like, I feel like I'm not the one who normally says stuff like this. Payson is usually the one who says weird stuff like that. Robert Redford is like smoking hot in this movie. Like that man in the 70s, my goodness. Like
it's funny because they don't want him to be. They want him to be like this nebbishy like book nerd, and so they like give him glasses and like a coat and sweaters and stuff. But it's still Robert Redford.
Oh
like,
yeah. But I thought he was great. I really liked just. I love movies like this and like The Firm, like people finding out like information that they're not supposed to have, they're getting hunted down, like type of stuff. Like I just found it really interesting. I think that the thing that held me back a little bit from like this being like an all-timer on first watch is I don't love it because it's so 70s. I don't love the I forget the name of the actress that's in it that he kidnaps.
Faye Dunaway.
She's great, but it's very like, oh, I randomly grab you, and a day later we're doing it because that's what we do in 70s movies. Like, I didn't love that part of it, but everything else I thought was super interesting. It looks amazing. And again, Robert Redford was just like awesome in the movie. Like I love him when I see him and stuff. I really, really enjoyed it. So I'm happy I got to watch it. Had a reason to watch it, I guess.
This is one of those movies that I had. Oh, this is one of those movies that I had marked as I had watched it. I'm not sure I ever did. I had to unmark it as watch because not a single frame of this looked familiar to me. So I'm like, if I did watch it, I must have just completely forgotten it. So I watched it essentially for the first time, and I actually did enjoy this. I think I enjoyed the tone and the style of it more than the actual execution of it. The story kind of left me a little flat, especially in the ending. But I liked the way it looked, except for the opening. The opening credits felt like a 70s TV show. But other than that, I actually really liked the look of it and the style. I think it works as well as it does because of Robert Redford. I think he is great in this. He's amazing. I mean, he's worked with Pollock like 7 times or something like that. So.
Oh, really? Wow.
It doesn't surprise me. He did well in that.
Yeah.
Faye Dunaway was in the middle of like her run where she did, what was it? Like Bonnie and Clyde, this and Network in the 3-year span. It's like, that's a hell of a run. Yeah, there. I agree with Tim. I didn't buy that love story at all, though. As much as I like both those actors, it's like all of a sudden one scene they're just making out, and then it goes just straight on, sex scene, porn sex, and all going on.
Yeah,
you didn't love when he like.
Yeah,
so
there's a theme. There's a
lot of porn sex scenes in all our films here on this.
Yeah, there's some choices made by a lot of people today. That's interesting.
Yeah,
that choice is sex.
But yeah, I mean, it's a movie. It's the kind of thing I like where it's like it's kind of an espionage story, but it's not about a secret agent. Like he even says, like I'm not an agent. I'm just a guy who happens to work at the CIA. I read books, and I kind of like the ones that don't focus on like the secret agent. It's just like some dude who's caught up in the middle of all this. And so I enjoyed that aspect of it. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed it. Like I said, the style more than the actual story, but I liked it.
I'm shocked that people didn't love when he basically just mansplains her emotional like state to her and why she should, be falling for him or whatever. Go ahead, Payson. Sorry, you were going to talk earlier.
No, I really, really vibed with this movie. Yeah, like Cody, I love these like 70s crime films. I do think the 70s is probably the best decade when it comes to movies, and these types of movies are often the reason why. I love Redford's character. His name was Joseph Turner, I believe, was the name of his character. Yeah, I love how just he feels like this like weird meekish guy. But it is Redford. Like you never really get to see Redford play like this like nerdy character type, and it was really fun to see him do that here. I thought the rest of the cast was really, really strong. Like Max von Sydow shows up. Is 70s Sydow? Is it safe to call that young Max von Sydow? Like
he always looks 50.
perpetually been 70 years old.
It's young.
Yeah,
age.
he's always
Yes.
old. It doesn't matter what movie it is. He's always old.
Yeah, and Cliff Robertson shows up. You got Uncle Ben from Spider-Man. I like whenever I'm watching a 70s movie and I hear just those like computer typing sounds, I'm always like, let's go, baby. And yeah, like I love how I understand the Winter Soldier comparisons, but like I love how like there really isn't like that many action scenes. Like there's one major one where Redford has to fight like a delivery man-esque guy, and of course there's one at the beginning. But like it usually just keeps the tension towards like the directing style, and I really, really love that.
I just want to get ahead of this. The reason why it's the Winter Soldier comparison is because you're working for an organization and then it turns against it. The action is not what comparison. It has nothing to do with it. That's what I'm saying.
It's Marvel's propaganda to try and legitimize their movies by comparing it to an actual film from the 70s. Anyway, go ahead.
It's a great film. It's a great film. But go ahead,
Sorry,
Scott.
John.
Anybody else want to talk about it?
Yeah, I'll jump in, I guess, and say this is definitely my kind of movie. Yeah, like the whole procedural, like I'm the same way as Brian. I think I watched it one time, but I didn't remember anything about it, so it's a first time watch. Except I did remember at one point he was in a payphone making a phone call. So remembered very significant portion of this movie. But no, yeah, it's good. There are some logic things like that are a little like like you're talking about the delivery man scene, like he's being so cautious, like because he understands that like anyone could be a threat to him or whatever. But then this delivery man comes to the door and rings the doorbell. First of all, he not only does he open the door in the first place, which he probably shouldn't have done, he then just like lets the guy just walk into the house when he like goes back to do whatever he needs to do.
There is a good reason for that, though. It's so the fight can happen.
Well, yes, of course.
So the movie can
that's very true. That's very true. I didn't think about that. But anyway, just a few things like that. I agree that like the plot isn't necessarily like super satisfying, but I don't necessarily come to these like spy thrillers for the plot. I mean, the James Bond movies, like none of the plots in those movies make sense. Like it's really just about the vibes and the action and all that. And like I think the vibes are good in this movie for the most part. Again, other than the romance stuff. Yeah, I think Redford's great. But saying that, I do think when it gets to the end and it's like, oh, it was all about oil. It's like, okay, like sure. It kind of fizzles out a little bit. But I did really like the last scene of him with the guy on the street, like being like, oh, I'm going to go tell, or I told the New York Times about this or whatever. And the guy's like, well, how do you know they're going to print it? And like, that's the note that the movie ends on. Like, again, great, like 70s paranoia stuff. Like this is the stuff that people were worried about at the time, but it's definitely a solid movie for sure. Definitely one of the better examples of its genre for the time.
All right. Yeah, I was polite. I'm new here, so I'll go last. Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I enjoy the fact that we're along for the same ride as Redford throughout the film. Of we have no idea what's happening. Like a case in point, like one of my favorite movies of all time is Die Hard. And if you were to just take Die Hard and shift the POV to only John McClane for the entire film, completely different film. Like information's limited, you're finding out some things along the way. Whereas we're spectators in that. In this one, we are along the ride with Redford, where I'm like, what the hell is going on? What the hell did this guy do? I have no idea what's happening. And I think that really made for the better film. As far as like that, I do love Die Hard more. I'm just saying for a better experience in this film of all the information we get, we're getting it with him. So we're along for the ride. We've got to like feel this out. And watching him just outsmart everybody and just kind of get ahead of things, it was a joy. And I also kind of really love the big surprise of Max von Sydow's like, no, I'm working for them again. It's cool. What'd you touch? Let's clean this up. He's like, it's a job, man. I don't care. And also, this is like just after Watergate America. So I feel like this hits really close to home now in that landscape. So yeah, no, it was excellent movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I also like the fact that this was under 2 hours, because the fact that like there's just a lot of movies of the time, and like one of the downfalls of I feel like the 70s to me is that there are movies that I think are really, really good that, as Brian would put it in his reviews, whole scenes or like plots could be cut out of the movie. And this one, I feel like it uses all, like it's like 115 minutes or something like that. It uses like every minute to its advantage. And that's awesome. There's like no filler here except for like maybe some of the love stuff that we've all kind of said is kind of meh. But like the actual like political thriller stuff that we're here to watch, it's timed and paced really, really perfectly. And I think that is a testament, considering there are other movies from the time that have similar vibes, similar stories that, again, I like long movies, but go into that like 230, 240 range that don't use it well.
I think it was interesting what like Bill said. It was like we're learning this information as we go, and that like changes like how this is. I think if we were like a spectator, and I don't know if I'd enjoy it as much as we're getting evidence, like when he gets into the elevator with the guy, and like all the people enter, and you just feel the tension. There's no there's no suspenseful music that plays. There's nothing like cues in. You just feel the silence.
Before we start, if anyone wants to get out, that scene.
Oh, the elevator scene that inspired the elevator scene in Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Yeah, pretty much. I was going to say it, but you know, the propaganda from Marvel, those damn bastards that keep the movie theaters open.
When I was watching the movie, I was like, this reminds me of that.
But when the tension, and then the more people come into it, and there's kids that just press all the buttons that you just want to punch in the face.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I love where he's like sets up the different things. Like when he goes to the phone booth and he places the call, and he's like, "What's the thing? What are you like?" And he's like trying, but now like his mind is turning up. Like, can I trust this person across the phone? In the thing when he gets the kids to follow him out, like because he knows the guys are like going to try to take him out once he leaves, and it's just like. He's like trying to be one step ahead because he doesn't know who to trust, and that's why I like it. I think it's polished direction and decision making, because he could have made those cheesy, or the tension go away really fast, or let us in on somebody not being, because that guy in the thing could have been, he doesn't do anything to him when he gets out, like he's fine, but because he has an ulterior motive. And I think that's just a really smart direction. The tension that they're able to develop in this movie is what works. The one thing that does work, it always holds it back for me. It's 4.5. Like I've given it on Letterboxd before. It's 4.5 for me. It's because of that relationship. I don't get behind it. It's just like we're 70s. There's a man. There's a woman. Got to be love. Let's put it together. This man doesn't need any.
He's gonna slap her and verbally abuse her a little bit, and then they're gonna have sex, and it's gonna be great, and the audience is gonna love it.
That's
it's the 70s.
Yeah, or anything prior. Like it's in every film. So yeah, that's the only thing that always holds it back from me. I love the tension that they're able to build, and I love the ending for this movie. So yeah, it's super solid. Anybody else?
I agree that I think that one of the reasons, like I said, why I liked it was because of Redford. I think he's what makes it work. And I think a lot of it is because, as they were saying, is that you're seeing the whole movie through his eyes. And so, like, as he's trying to come up with theories of what's going on, whether they're right or wrong, you're kind of following through with him. Like, he's like, oh, maybe there's a CIA within the CIA and all this kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah. That line was incredible. When he was just like, what if there's another CIA inside the CIA? I was like, hell yeah.
It's just watching his mind work and all these theories, whether they're right or wrong. You're still kind of in his shoes and kind of, like you said, he doesn't know who he can trust. He doesn't know if he can use the phone, all that kind of stuff. That's kind of fun. And then, as Bill was saying with Max von Sydow, how they just totally subvert your expectations. You think it's building up to this big face-off between those two. And he shows up, he's like, "No, we're cool." And you're like, "Oh,
do you need a lift? I drop you off."
Plus, I'm just glad I get to see Max von Sydow because I was supposed to bring Strange Brew on a previous episode I had to drop out of, but now I still get Max von Sydow. So there you
go. The one last thing I want to.
Okay. Go ahead, Payson.
Yeah. The one last major factor I want to just touch on, and maybe this is just because like I was born in 97, so like whenever this pops up, it's always like a whoa moment. But like whenever I'm watching a movie from like before 2001 on, and I see the World Trade Center, it's always like, oh, right, that existed.
Yeah,
that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, it's definitely a standout moment in most films. Whenever I see it, I'm just like, oh. Yeah.
I was also just
Scott,
amused
you
in
were
the
gonna-
opening credits where it says based on the novel 6 Days of the Condor. I'm like, why did they have to cut off those extra 3 days? I don't know what that was about.
It's too long of a movie. We wanted to be under 2 hours for Tim.
Yeah, that's
There was
I
a
was just
lot
gonna
more
say-
sex. There was a lot more sex.
3
than
days
yeah,
that.
of
they
sex.
stay in
Some
the
of the things
apartment a lot longer. Yeah.
They stay on the
Oh.
That's the
I was just
relationship. It's spread up. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, another thing I love is like in movies from this era, like when you're trying to solve problems with like all this antiquated technology. I always love that in movies, which they do some of that in this movie, like the phone tracing and stuff. Black Christmas is another movie from this era where there's like this crazy phone tracing scene where they
Yeah.
have like all these servers and like it's like I don't even understand what's going on.
Yeah,
Well,
watch
I-
it,
phones
like,
used to
go
be.
from place to place.
I was gonna say that earlier. I've talked a lot recently about how I love when movies like throw me into a world and don't explain shit to me and let me figure it out. And I feel like the 70s were great for that. They were like, we're not gonna explain to you how phone tracing works, but it's gonna look fucking cool. And Robert Redford is sweaty and sexy doing it. So there you go.
Yeah, it's always those. It's in all those movies where they like do the super like they zoom in on the person's face. Like this is how we assume technology is going to work in the
Yeah.
future. They have no clue. Yeah. Yeah. So overall, great film. I think most people enjoyed it. That's great. Mine's 4.5. We'll go to Tim. Get your rating on it. What do you give?
I go 4 stars. I might have gone 5 if they hadn't done the perspective thing Bill was saying. If they had done had us like in Captain America the Winter Soldier, if they had us like knowing everything the whole time, I might have gone 5 stars. But I love you, Scott. I'm sorry. 4 stars. This is an awesome movie. Honestly, like if I could watch, I would like to show Maggie this movie. I think she would really like it. And it might go up, but I very much enjoyed it. I need to get into more Pollock stuff for sure.
Payson.
Yeah, I would go 4.5 stars. I think this is just an excellent, excellent movie, and I'm so happy I finally get to watch it for the first time. Either my favorite or my second favorite new watch I did for this episode.
Awesome. Bill.
Yeah, I'd go 4 for this one. Just really excellent. My only gripe is the weird love story angle. I could have although I will say once they get over the awkward hump, them two together actually like fucking dripping with chemistry, and they are great. But yeah, it's just a weird awkward. Let me tie you up in your bedroom now. Let's fuck. Yeah, so it's a little weird. So, yeah.
Don't knock the trip. Brian, your pick.
Yeah, I like to be talked.
Oh.
Oh no, sorry.
Oh.
No, I did like it. I think that the story of it, and especially the kind of anticlimactic ending, in my opinion, kind of took away from it, though. But I still give it 3.5.
Oh, I'll take that from Brian. And Scott.
4 stars. I definitely enjoyed it. Rock solid. Great vibes. Good Redford. Solid watch.
Yeah, and I can't wait till Roundtable. In a couple episodes, we're going to do MCU night. We're going to have Scott and Tim back on. It's going to be a blast when we're talking about
I'm
the films
definitely
of the MCU.
sick for that episode.
It's gonna be fun.
That would be so much fun to watch.
No, it would not. Because Tim and Scott,
We would hate each other too.
I like Scott. I want to keep it's okay that we disagree, but we don't need to make a fucking spectacle out of it.
And I don't want to be
looking
on
for the
because I
views.
know
That's the round
everyone
table
would
every
yell
week
at
right
me
here.
because I bring Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 because that's still my favorite MCU.
No, that's just me. Well, speaking to Bill, it's your time. Fresh.
All right. So the big reason why I picked this one is this is a personal favorite movie of mine. I remember when this came out, it was like it got out on home video, and when I was a kid, like I was really super into movies. So I'd go down to like my video store, and the guy at the counter was like, "You gotta watch this. This movie's fucking amazing." And I was like blown away by how good this film was. And this film was on like every critic's best of at the end of the year, just about. It was just like critically beloved, and then it just went away. Everyone just somehow forgot about it, which is kind of weird. It's also weird that Boaz Yakin, the guy who did Remember the Titans, started his career with this film. And what a completely different film this is. And I don't want to go into it because I know we're going to talk about it, but everyone I try to get to watch this, they're like, Jesus Christ, I can't get over how good this is. So it's just one of those films I try to like get people to watch because I think it honestly deserves it. It's a fantastic film. I will open the floor for everybody else.
Well,
For
the
the
thing
record,
is,
I'm
it's really
here.
interesting.
For the record,
You're
I'm
good,
here. I'm
you're
just
good.
moving around. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good. Well, we will look into the director career that is him. He has
So
the
weird.
most interesting directing career I have ever seen.
It's like fresh.
Ever.
Remember the Titans? Uptown Girls. Prince of
Uptown
Persia.
Girls, like the man
Yeah.
bounces and
Yeah.
it doesn't hit anything interesting. And the thing is, he pulls out movies that are like great. Like, I just want to know, like, Disney, especially early 2000s Disney, said, the guy that did Fresh, come do a PG Remember the Titans movie. Like, I don't know how those happened, but I'm glad they happened because it's one of my favorite films in time. Yeah, but we'll open up the floor. Fresh, who wants to go first?
I'll just get this out of the way. I tipped my hat earlier. I was talking to Cody. I really liked this movie. I thought that the ending, especially, really awesome. Like the last 45 minutes or so, I loved. I knew nothing about this going into it, so I was super hyped when I kind of realized what was happening. The chess game that Fresh is playing, and just the reveal of him like kind of bullshitting everyone, getting everything that he not necessarily maybe wanted from the get-go, but just like, you know, just like basically one-upping everybody at every turn, I thought was great. But I also, this movie made me a little uncomfortable.
I'm going to guess which scene that was.
Yeah, and honestly, and so the thing is like the thing that is interesting to me as I try to get my dog inside. No, you don't want to come in? Okay. I didn't love the dog scene. Dogs fighting. That didn't bother me as much. I was like, okay, this is like, I can't imagine they're actually like making dogs fight here, like whatever, like I don't know. And then the scene where he shoots the dog just like really bothered. It affected me. It honestly made me feel really uncomfortable. I didn't like it, but I'm glad the movie won me back in the end. I'm not going to say what my score is yet, but I would recommend this movie to everyone. I think that the like I said, the chess game that's going on, the reveals at the end of what he's doing and everything were awesome. Go in as blind as possible. And I really enjoyed it. But I said to Cody earlier, I really don't get affected by like stuff like this, but I think the movie does such a good job at being realistic that's why it affected me so much. Because the movie did such a good job at making you feel like you're part of this world, like you're there with him. So when that scene happens, it just felt all the more real. So again, it's the one downside of this movie to me. The rest of it, really incredible. Great child performance. Like, holy shit.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Really shocking imagery, but important stuff. I really liked Giancarlo Esposito. I thought he was dope in this. No pun intended. I thought he was great. I'm glad I watched it for sure.
Well, yeah. I might just also list with a disclaimer. Like, this is no shot at Bill or anything. This also happened with Michael's film, Wake and Fright. Of just like a shock, like not almost like a shock warning that happens, because in that movie they just brutally like shoot away.
The difference is in Wake and Fright, real animals were actually
right. They just blow away a bunch of kangaroos for like 20 minutes of the film, and we're all like,
Also, I don't know, and like this is a genuine question. Like, I'm not trying to be facetious at all. Like, I might have missed something, and I know we talk spoilers on the show, right?
Obviously, yes, like, absolutely.
What was the point of him shooting the dog? Because I know the whole thing was that like he didn't want the dog to be in the fights, but I forgot to mention this. I thought this the whole time. not that mad about what happened to Chucky. Was that his name? That kid was fucking
I'm not that
obnoxious.
mad
Yeah,
either.
he's the
He was
worst.
very
Kid's
annoying.
a fucking prick. He was annoying as hell. I was like, Bill, what kind of movie are you making me watch?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then you
But
yeah,
played
oh.
his part perfectly.
But
Chucky
what?
was
So
supposed
I think I missed something because plot-wise, what
yeah,
was
they
the
don't
point of him
really
doing
say it, but you get the gist of like he knows there is no future where he is, and there's a part of him that realizes like this dog is not going to be better off. There's no chance of
Gotcha.
him getting out.
That's
And, like,
kind of
this
what
is
I got out
have.
of it.
This is the
but-
sacrifice I have to do, and that's really that scene where the whole chess game kicks in the high gear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because it was kind of, and sorry that I keep rambling. I'll stop
No.
after this. But the first half of the movie I had said earlier was like I enjoyed it, but I wasn't necessarily really captivated or anything. But I enjoyed it, and then after that dog scene, even though I was like shocked and really upset, that was when I like really was like, oh, this is this movie. This is great.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
yeah, but that makes
everything
sense. That's
kicks
kind
into
of
gear.
that's how I took it. Okay, I'll shut up now. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Pacey.
Of all the movies that we picked, this was the only one I had not heard of, and I was excited to watch it. Especially like Cody said, when you look up what Boaz Yakin has done, it's been a very interesting career, and I really liked this movie. I love how just like real and just gritty the movie feels, and I think that's a really big plus to the movie. I love the dialogue. Like, there are a few things to me more fun, and this is like a really like niche interest, but like when you're watching a 90s movie and they just start talking about comics, like specifically 90s and comics, is always just so much fun because that was like such a cool era for comic books. Yeah, every chess scene that Fresh has with his dad, played by Jackson, is incredible. Every like the dialogue in these scenes, like when his dad is just like, you're trying to play aggressive, but every time I make a move back, you immediately try to go protect your queen, and just like the metaphors for that. Just the character Fresh is just so smart. Like at the end, just playing everyone. I want to credit Boatman, but I think his review just saying like it almost feels like you're watching like if you took the movie Yojimbo and put a 12-year-old in that movie, of how he's just playing both sides so well. And yeah, Giancarlo Esposito, one of the most one of the best actors I think we have. If you go back years and years, and just seeing him in this movie as the villain, I think is so much fun. Like Tim, it's brutal at points, and it was hard to watch, especially with those animal cruelty scenes. But overall, I'm really happy I watched it.
I enjoyed it. I think I actually had kind of an opposite reaction to Tim, where I liked the first part of the movie a lot, and then the actual when the the shoe drops and we like see the last half hour and sort of how he's conned everyone. I just thought there were some moments where his plan really hinged on people believing what he was going to say, like about, oh hey, no, actually this guy is two-timing you and trying to take over your enterprise and overthrow you and everything. And oh no, actually it's the dude at the grocery store, right? He's the one, and he's been seeing Nicole and all of that, which was actually kind of true. But anyway, it's all dependent on these people believing him, and I get it to some extent that he has built up the trust with these people, and so like they maybe they are going to believe him. But I just felt a little bit of reservations about how easily it could have gone wrong. I guess like it wasn't quite a as foolproof maybe as the movie wants you to believe. But obviously in the end, like I get, the police show up and he's hidden the evidence and everything under the bed, and that all that makes sense because you have the evidence there and everything. But I guess it just didn't fully click for me, the actual like denouement and how his plot clicks into place. But I mean, I thought it was a good movie. Yeah, very raw, and I definitely think that Sean Nelson was fantastic as the kid. It's surprising that he hasn't done anything else really since this movie came out. He makes you believe the tough guy act that he's putting on. So I thought he was great in that regard. yeah, I like the relationship with the father. I wish we had gotten maybe a little more of like his relationship with the sister as well, because that's kind of, a pretty important,
Big part, yeah.
motivating force for him in doing all of this. And I don't know, she gets like maybe 1-2 important scenes, but I thought there could have been a little bit more there. But yeah, it's good. And it's a good ensemble cast too. Again, Sam Jackson is great as the dad. Um, I liked the very last scene of him just sort of finally breaking down and showing some emotion when he's like sort of held it in throughout the whole movie. I thought that was great. Um, just a few plot things that held me back from like loving it.
Yeah, this is one that I have not seen this movie before. I'd heard of it but never watched it, and it started off and it was okay. It wasn't really grabbing me, but it wasn't bad. But I think once the first scene with Samuel L. Jackson, him playing chess in the park, once Samuel L. Jackson shows up, I thought it really kind of kicked into gear and clicked for me, because that whole scene is very well done. I thought Samuel obviously does a great job as always, but even just Sean Nelson, I think that the kid's a really great actor here, and I did the same thing. I kind of looked to see what else he had done. And I mean, he's been in stuff, but the only thing I actually remember him from is The Wood, where he played the young version of Omar Epps' character. But I thought the movie really kicked into gear there, and then followed immediately by Giancarlo Esposito. I thought he was amazing in this movie. I do think I think the chess scenes are great, although I think the whole metaphor of chess as a metaphor for life, they kind of beat that metaphor into the ground a little hard. Overdid that maybe a little bit, in my opinion. But I like the way this was directed. There was some, and they kept you kind of guessing. Like I remember on the playground shooting scene, where at first you don't realize the girl's shot, and then they kind of move over, and then you see that girl he likes a shot. I did not.
That scene was excellent. Yeah,
I did not see that
was
coming at all.
Terrifying scene. Yeah.
Brutal.
And then the as far as like the dog fighting scenes, I don't like to see dog fighting, but it's like this is supposed to be a bunch of bad people, so it didn't surprise me at all. But then when the scene came where he strung up the dog, and at first I thought he was trying to strangle the dog, and then he gets the gun and shoots him. I'm like, I want this kid to die. I really want this kid to die now. And unlike Tim, the movie never won me back, because I'm sorry. I know it's just the story, but I have a hard time sympathizing with a character who's going to do shit that makes me hate him so much. Yeah. But that's just me. But I mean, it is a good movie. It just, wasn't my
literally favorite. You take that scene out, and this could easily be an all-timer.
I wouldn't go that far for me, but I think I would like it a lot more, because like I said, it was hard for me to get back on his side after that.
Yeah.
The thing is, what I realized two things. The realness of this movie, it got me to. I was not able to fully connect back in on the second half after that, and I think that's a silly, like, for me, from my viewpoint, not for anybody else, but like I should have been able to, but like that was just like I guess when you see certain things in films for a while, you like let them pass. I don't see that every day in a film. So it's just like, that's a lot to take in. So when that happened, like the feeling like actually hit me quite hard. So that was rough, the realness. It's a total side tangent, but like I'm thinking like how he's able to attack like this like real like it felt real. Like this was like watching a slice of life like out of reality. What I think is like, and I love Remember the Titans. Don't get me wrong. I think the movie's great. It's perfect. But, like, the restraint he had to even pull doing Remember the Titans, I feel, because of how real this movie felt, like, there's Disney behind Remember the Titans. You feel it throughout the movie. They don't throw punches. They hold a lot back. The realness of that story in his hands was, like, I could just imagine a completely 180 movie on that hand, because you'd tackle the race thing and like that stuff like in real life. I think he was the right director, so I think that would have been an interesting take. But yeah, I like the Samuel L. Jackson stuff. I really did. I think that it's hard not to like that. I think that brings me back because it's like a familiar face and like a safe space. Like especially when he shows up, like it's like, oh, I'm okay, because everything else is like really real. I think he directs this movie incredible. I think he is. I think the performances are really good. The metaphor's beaten in. I agree with Brian on that one. I think they get the point, but like they do like a Spike Lee level of like hammer it over your head. Like, hey, do you get this? It's chess. It's life. I get it. But no, I was really surprised. I've never even heard of this movie. Samuel L. Jackson has done 200 plus movies or more at this point, and this is one of that I just have no clue it existed. So, and especially for the director of
it got totally overshadowed. So,
right, exactly, same year. So yeah, no. So Bill, go ahead. You've sat back quietly. You can tell us your.
So the thing for me is, because I went back, I hadn't seen it for years, and then I went back a few years ago and rewatched it, and I think it just hits even more home now, especially with me growing up in Philly. Like, this just felt like growing up to me. Like, everything about this film, like, I could just almost feel like the sweat in the summer and the grime of the streets. And they do a fantastic job of, like, absolutely grounding the film. And everyone is great. Like, Sean Nelson kills through the entire film. And, like, going on that journey with him and just seeing this kid win these people over. But at the same time, it's a lot of fantastic setup and payoff of just him paying attention, like, oh, well, okay, so this guy gets, like, real weird when people do things behind his back. I'm going to play into that paranoia, and then I'm going to say, oh, no, Jake's actually been ripping you off. I'm like, oh, okay, you're real, like, it's about my sister. I can easily use that against you, and then that sets up the whole scene with it, like, and it's just him calculating everybody around him, and then watching him unleash this plan, and just going along with him, and because there are times where, and the thing I also do enjoy is, like, while there are violent scenes, you don't really see a lot of violent things. Like, it's always kind of off camera, but it's always through his eyes, and you're reacting to basically the drug war through the eyes of a 12-year-old. And the aspects that he is seeing, and he's not necessarily seeing some violent things. And yes, I will agree, he does do a lot of awful things like kill a dog and basically get his friend murdered because he knew that's exactly what was going to happen. And he knew everything going into this. And it's all set up in the conversations he's having with his dad. Like, hey, no, you need to come get this. You don't need to care about the horse. You don't need to care about your queen. You got to come get this guy. Everything else is just a means. And how that basically informs, like, the decisions he makes throughout the rest of the film. And yeah, I fucking adore this film so much. It's so good.
Yeah. I just want to we can talk about the movie a little bit more in a second, but I do want to, like, talk. I said I want to talk about, like, his filmography and, like, why he showed, like, where he goes.
It's so weird.
It just doesn't make any sense to me. Is the whole thing, like, how you can go from this movie? Like, I can kind of see why Disney reached agreement with him on.
Well, before you even go through everything else, I think it's funny that there were a few of us that said we had never even heard of this movie, and this is the guy who directed Remember the Titans, and which is a movie that I think I would assume a lot of us at least think is good, at least, if not great. So it's funny that a bunch of us were like, we've never even heard of this movie, and it's directed by a guy who made a movie that we really, really like. So, but then, yeah, go ahead, Cody.
Not only that, like, so his directing is one thing. So he directs, Safe, Max, Uptown Girl. Dope. Like, he does some movies that are, and then he also writes, like, a movie that we had on the show, The Harder They Fall. Now You See Me.
Yeah.
Yes.
He wrote Prince Now You See Me, Koho's vote to get into fandom.
Yeah, Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time. He wrote that too. It's just the crazy, like, this man has just done the most wildest.
Did you say good movie, The Prince of Persia, Scott?
Somebody did, I think.
I said good movie, yeah.
The Prince of Persia starring Jake Gyllenhaal?
Oh.
Yeah.
Man, let me
starring Alfred Molina as a guy who runs ostrich races. Come on.
If you've ever been wondering who also wrote the screenplay to Dirty Dancing, Havana Nights, this guy as well. So it's just like this guy has, but like he directs like such a grounded, like, real movie in this. Does Remember the Titans and then gets Uptown Girl. It's just. This man just, either says no to, like, anything that plops down on his desk or doesn't get a lot of options, but I think it's just crazy.
Am I remembering this incorrect? Or okay, so Uptown Girl was the one I was thinking of. For some reason, I feel like I remember seeing that he directed The Other Woman, but that was somebody else I was looking at. Uptown Girl is
It's like Cassavetes, right? Was the other woman? Cassavetes kid.
Woman under the
Nick
influence.
Cassavetes. No, Bill was correct. Nick Cassavetes directed The Other Woman.
Oh, that's what I was thinking.
Okay, yeah. I was like, where were we going with this?
I was like,
but
what?
no.
No, that's a different
No,
evening altogether.
So I just think it's an interesting director that no one would ever like. If you said if you listed these three films like in a trivia question, who directed Uptown Girl, Safe, and Remember the Titans, people would be like, "What are you talking about?" So
I will say the dog movie is not that bad. It came out right after my childhood dog died, and so I refused to see it in the theater.
Yeah.
And then Maggie was like, Tim, you can't miss a new release because remember, you're the new releases guy. Fast forward 10 years and now Payson is in my life. Anyway, what are we talking about?
And anybody else want to have things to talk about from Fresh before we grade it?
Did Payson talk about it or did I miss that when I was running around?
No, he talked.
Okay, I was dealing with Bucky.
He quoted Boatman.
Oh, that's right. Okay, you're right. Sorry.
Go. Okay, we'll get scores. Okay, perfect. Bill, it's your movie.
I mean, this is a 5-star movie for me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Brian.
3.
Okay. Payson.
4.
Scott.
I gave it 3.5. I did enjoy it.
3 for me. I'm sitting at 3. I think it could maybe go a little bit, but I almost have to skip over or see a lot more dead dogs on screen for me to I think feel okay with that. Tim.
I've been thinking about this since Thursday.
Man that doesn't give half. So
I'm gonna go 3. But I will say this. I say it a lot where I'm like, it could go up on rewatch. I genuinely think this is one where that really does fit the statement, where this is one that I think upon rewatch, it really could go up to like a 4. Like I said, take out that scene. I think it could be an all-timer. I really did enjoy that second half. So but I go 3 for now.
I think that's one thing that people in this community like. One of the biggest tropes ever, and I'm very guilty of it. Is like a movie that gets high praise and be like, it could go up on rewatch. It's probably never going up on rewatch. It's going to stay right where it is. But no one can yell at me.
I'm never going to rewatch it.
Yeah. Yes, you sure can. I was going to suggest that for you, and we're going to be moving to Scott.
Hopefully not Payson's movie.
Payson right there was saying, "Pull me out." I think is what he was saying. Yeah. Pull me out.
I was asking for that the entire movie. Scott, go ahead and. Why'd you bring this?
So I chose Possessor. Yeah. So I mean, I think in general, 2020 was just a year where people just kind of like don't acknowledge that there was a lot of movies that came out that year still because of the COVID, everything that happened with COVID. This was my second favorite movie of 2020. Only Nomadland I liked more. I was just like blown away when I saw this for the first time, but I think a lot of people missed it because, it wasn't showing in theaters. There was like a weird, there's the uncut version, there's the theatrical version. I think people just missed it. But anyway, Brandon Cronenberg directed. He came out with a new movie this year. That already came out, Infinity Pool. So I thought this would be a good time to revisit this. Basically, if you don't know what the film is, it's like set in the future, and there's this technology that allows people to like inhabit other people's bodies. Again, it's a Cronenberg, so body horror type stuff is going on, obviously. And you have Andrea Riseborough playing this assassin who basically she inhabits other people's bodies and commits murders in their bodies for hire, and she's hired to inhabit the body of this guy played by Christopher Abbott and try and kill this guy who's like the head of I think it's like a tech company or something, because again there's a contract out on this guy, but as she inhabits Christopher Abbott, he seems to have this weird sort of control over his own body and psyche, and there starts being this like battle, but inside Christopher Abbott, like between the both of them for control of his body. And, it goes to some crazy places because, again, it's a Cronenberg. But I just love the storytelling in this movie. Like, I think from the beginning, it sets up, like, these ideas about, like, body dysmorphia and, like, consumerism and capitalism, like, turning us into drones and all this stuff. Like, Christopher Abbott has this job where he just sits and, like, looks at people's curtains and stuff to, like, determine, what is like what types of curtains people are buying. Like, he's doing market research basically, but it's just like he just sits there and watches everything, and he obviously hates it and, like, is dead inside at this job. And so I think they set it up in the beginning, like, with her, like, starting to, like, lose control over her actual identity, and then in the end you realize, like, she has lost any sort of, like, moral compass that she ever had. Like, the what that last scene reveals, where she, like, is like, again, there's that setup early in the movie of, like, what happened to it's a butterfly, right? And she's like, oh, I felt sorry or something when it died. And then in the end, like, she repeats it again. And this time she just does not say, like, I felt bad when it died or whatever. You see that she's, like, lost her capacity for feeling. But anyway, I'm rambling a bit. Anyway, I love the storytelling in the movie. I also think the visuals are crazy, like the reds and, like, wild color palettes that are going on when, like, the two people are, like, at war with each other for control of Christopher Abbott's body. I think Christopher Abbott especially gives an amazing performance because he's, like, playing three different versions. He's playing himself, he's playing Andrea Riseborough controlling him, and then he's playing, like, both of them fighting each other all at the same time. It's just a really sick, like, genre movie that has ideas and conveys them in, I think, a very efficient and effective way. So I think it's great.
I'm going to get ahead of this because I think there's going to be a few people that like this a lot more than me. I despise this movie to like a huge degree.
Goodness.
The thing is, I love the concept of this movie, and this just falls back on it. I know he's beloved. Cronenberg in general, if that's the last name, I'm running for the hills. I do not care. This is, like, as much as I hate directors that just do, like, I don't know how to describe it, quirky things or, like, scenery, or just because that's what they do. Cronenberg's, like, the absolute worst at it. Like, and he passed it off to his son, so that's a great Christmas gift that he gave. But, like, this body dysmorphia stuff just disgusts the shit out of me. Like, him, like, my family, and I was watching it on my computer because I'm glad I didn't watch this when I could watch it with everybody. And I was like, my face was just like this the entire time. And they're like, what are you watching? I'm like, I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it at this point because it's just gross on top of gross on top of gross. Like, but the concept of the movie I like, so I wish somebody else would have directed it, I guess, and I guess it wouldn't have been a story because I think you can tell this thing without blood pouring all out of the wounds and then digging in and their face melting off and they're like, oh, and assholes and genitals on screen for, like, regardless, for no reason whatsoever to tell the story. Like, they did the same thing where you took over someone's body, kind of. Isn't this what they did in Wonder Woman 84 when Chris Pine got thrown, like, into that other person's body? And
don't talk about that.
No, you're just trying to make Scott head explode.
That movie
I'm going to say I would watch that movie maybe over this one again. It's just, like, it's just gross. Like, it's just gross on top of it, just to be gross. But people like that. And now I'm having PTSD. Hold on.
But I have to respond because it is not just gross for the sake of being gross. It is a plot point that this is how she kills people, right? She kills people in a grotesque way when she is not supposed to, because that is her starting to lose control over herself.
Well, I have to counterbalance. Well, if that's how they kill, then they'll also have to dig into the top of the head to insert the thing and blood pour out.
That's how the technology works.
Well, now we're just being gross to be gross. That's interesting. The grotesque, if that was just the killing, but, like, her, like, wanting to, like, paint her hands in blood just didn't need to happen. I'm also getting PTSD now anytime I see the neon logo, like, pop up, because it's either good or bad, but I'm starting to flip out when it happens. And again, they just make movies that are not for me. Like that's the thing. Like I'm not saying like if you find this movie enjoyable, I'm happy for you. I'm glad. But like for me, I think I'm gonna start shaking if I see it again. We will pass it around because I guarantee I'm going to be in the minority for this movie.
I'll go next. Oh no, go ahead, Brad.
I want to go next because Cody just like basically hacked into my computer and read my notes. I will say I did not despise this movie. I did not despise it. I didn't love it, but I did not despise it. First of all, I think Christopher Abbott looks just like Kit Harington. Kept throwing me off the whole movie. That's a whole side thing. But I mean, I like him though. I really like the concept of it. It's a cool idea, and some of the ways they did it, I thought were kind of cool. If they made like a major studio mainstream version of this, I'd be all over that. But this version of it is not for me. And I admit that it's not. I'm just going to say it's bad. I'm just saying this is not for me. And because I even have in my notes here, Neon for me is just one step above A24 in the movies that aren't for Brian. It's just Neon. When I see Neon, I'm just kind of like, oh my god. The only good thing is I know if it's Neon, I can find it on Hulu, so it's free to watch.
Parasite, hey,
yeah.
Parasite.
There are exceptions. There are exceptions.
It's good or bad, yeah.
I like, but generally speaking.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, generally speaking, it's just not my kind of thing. But I mean, it's like you said, I like the concept of it. I think the performances were pretty good. Although Andrea Riseborough, honestly, is a supporting actress in this movie. She's like hardly in it compared to the other actors because her presence is there, but her physically is not in as much of the movie. So yeah, I mean, I'm totally willing to write this off. It's just a movie that's not the style for me because I also have never been a big fan of Cronenberg's either. So either one of them. But they aren't movies that I hate. They're just movies that are like, not my thing.
So me being a fan of Cronenberg, I'll chime in that this movie is fine. It's fine. It was fine. I do appreciate a good gore. That's just a little bit of who I am as a person. Thought it took a little too far murdering a kid. That was a little much. Probably could have done without that, but
is it bad that I hated the dog killing more than the kid killing? I don't know.
See, it's funny. I'm the other way around because at least I didn't have to watch the dog's brain fly out of the back of his fucking head. So,
yeah, that
having been said, I agree with everybody that this is a great premise. My only issue is, and it's funny because I was like everybody else. As soon as I saw Neon, I'm like, well, I know what kind of movie I'm in for. So it's okay. I'm either going to be like, holy shit, it's amazing, or I'm like, fucking wrap it up. And I kind of was in the latter this time. I just feel like it took too long. And I was like, how is this under 2 hours? And I feel like it's taking forever for some reason for me. It just was. I just feel like it just took forever to get there. Also, I will admit, performances are great. Visuals, I'm all for it. I love a good color palette as much as anybody, and this movie digs into that. And as I'm watching the movie, I'm like, Andrea Riseborough, I'm like, this woman looks kind of familiar. And I was blown away because, like, she was in Oblivion that I just watched 2 weeks ago. And I was like, how the fuck is that the same person? That is insane. That is, like, Gary Oldman level of method that I was not ready for. I'm like, you look like a completely different human being. Bravo to you. But I won't say it's a bad film. But I'm not in a rush to rewatch it. And my only issue was pacing and a little bit. Like, I feel like they could have sped it up a little bit. That is just for me. So, but yeah, I mean, it's fine. I wouldn't say it's bad. So.
Go ahead, Basil.
I enjoyed this. Yeah, I enjoyed this movie. I thought it was good, not great. Like everyone said, I just think the premise of this movie is so cool. Just the idea of like this assassin, like being able to like sync their mind up into another person and take control of that, and then like it makes you it makes you think about like how ethical that is. Obviously, it's not ethical. The gory stuff is just sort of like it's not something that bothers me in movies, but it's just always like I do think like Cody and Brian, there comes a point where I'm just like, okay. Like at one point, I just become like desensitized to it. I'll admit I was a little confused with the plot by points, and I think on rewatch maybe it could become a little bit more clear. Hey, look, I did the thing. I love it whenever Jennifer Jason Leigh shows up in a movie. I think she's one of like the most underrated actresses like ever. Like we do not appreciate her enough. Like Hudsucker Proxy, let's go. And then yeah, like Scott said, I think the visuals are great. Yeah, Brian, you got it. The visuals I think in this movie are really, really cool. And even if I wasn't like the most invested in the story, I could at least look at that. And then yeah, I'm pro Neon, like Parasite, Pig. Let's go.
Guess where I lean on this one?
You liked it.
Yeah, this movie's fucking awesome. Like, what are we talking about, guys? Yeah, so I'm Team Scott with apparently when we see the neon logo, we get scared. I love the neon logo. Neon logo shows up and I'm pumped.
You like the car fucking movie too? Interesting.
I think I gave it 3 stars and you were very upset with me. So I didn't love it, but anyway, I've been wanting to watch this one for a really long time. My favorite part of the experience of watching this film was in the middle of it, I Googled what is the difference between the uncut and the theatrical, because I watched the uncut. That was what was on Hulu. And Reddit had a lot to say about erect penises. So that was fun.
Yeah, I think it's just that one scene where he is watching the thing at work and like he sees the people having sex or whatever. I think it's just like slightly more explicit in the uncut version. Like I think that's the only difference. Yeah.
Great. Great. I got to see that.
Sorry, I missed that.
I've only seen the uncut version, so like I don't really know.
No, I really dug this though. I have found that the Cronenberg I have seen, I really like. Disclaimer: I haven't seen a lot. I've seen The Fly, I've seen History of Violence, I've seen Eastern Promises, so I haven't seen a lot of like his big other like heavy hitters from early in his career. But so far, this was my introduction to Brandon, and I thought he did a great job. I love the body horror stuff. But like everybody said, the concept fucking awesome. I was in from the get-go because of that. And I really, really liked towards the end, the back and forth of her kind of falling in and out of him, and like that whole part of it towards the end I thought was interesting. You throw Sean Bean into the mix, I'm always game. That man has died in so many interesting ways over the years, so you gotta love to see it. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. This isn't like one that I think like it ended and I was like, wow, I'm really glad I watched that. I dug it. I'm interested to see the rest of his movies. But because I have not seen Infinity Pool yet, it came out.
Not as good.
It played only a week at the theater near me, and I was in Nashville at the time, so I didn't get a chance to see it in the theater. But as soon as it comes out on Blu-ray, I'll pick it up and watch it, and I'm sure I'll enjoy it. But I'm this is one where I was like, I really dug it. I'm excited to see his next films. I don't know that I would ever run back to watch this because this type of movie would absolutely destroy Maggie. She would hate this. But I agree with Pace and Jennifer Jason Leigh showing up. I like the whole concept of like, it really clicked with me when they did that first thing where Jennifer Jason Leigh was like, they gave you a gun. Like, why did you kill in that way or whatever? Like, and she was like, oh, I thought it was more in character. And she was like, in whose character? I was like, let's fucking go. I was like, I am in. So as just a character study, and then you throw in like body horror and stuff like that, like I'm all about that. I thought this was great. I will say though, the thing that keeps it from being like 5 stars, like incredible to me, I agree with Bill. I thought the pacing was kind of weird. Where like I think that was Bill that said it. It was like an hour 45. But for some reason it felt a lot longer than I think it needed to be. And I don't know where you trim it or whatever, but for some reason the pacing and stuff just felt a little off to me. But I really, really enjoyed it. Again, I've been wanting to watch it for a long time, so I'm glad this gave me the reason to, because it's been in my watch list on Hulu for like 2.5 years. So whenever it came out,
I could tell you where you cut it. I could cut it. It was cool, like 30 minutes off this movie right there. And I want to retract something I said. I said Neon, like I'm getting PTSD because there's good and bad. Like I don't know what I'm getting at this point, but like sometimes I get a movie like Broker that I saw this past year, loved it. But then I get some movie like this, and I'm like, I didn't.
Was the Neon Demon neon?
No.
But I think Teton was, if I'm
Was
not
it not?
mistaken.
I think
It
it
is,
was.
yes.
Yeah.
Teton definitely is, yeah.
Neon film
Yeah.
did not exist when the Neon Demon came out, so it can't be.
Let's not talk about that
What?
film.
I wouldn't know.
Either
Not
way,
good.
Yeah.
either way, I think where it goes down to it is it a bad movie? I just will never put like Tim was talking about, like, that's freaking great, I'm never gonna watch it again. Well, that's fair, but like I don't even think I could ever.
I've watched it 4 times, so
Jesus.
You know, I'm proud of you, Scott. I was with Bill. I was like, this movie didn't seem that long, but it felt really long because it was what was on the screen, what the subject matter. So, anybody else want to say anything else about it?
One thing I'll tell you, what you could cut, maybe the 900 fucking production companies at the beginning of this film, like that was annoying to me. That was just like, what the
Respect
fuck? Like,
must
how
be
many
paid.
hands are going through this film?
Welcome to independent filmmaking.
It's ridiculous.
4. Yeah.
Scott, what's your rating?
Pull me out. 5 stars.
Okay.
It's in my top 100.
We'll go Tim. He loved it. We'll give him 4 stars.
4 stars. 4 stars.
Yeah. You said it's not 5, so I figured. Payson.
Good movie, 3.5.
Bill.
I am with Payson on the 3.5 as well.
Brian.
For me, 2.
Me, 1.5. And that's for concept, I think, alone. And before the
I'll
blood
take it.
happened. I'm getting a little. I even looked at my half stars. I'm like, I'm a little ridiculous with a half star on some of them, but like, I'm trying to get better with my ratings. But yeah, that's a 1.5. I'm never gonna watch it again, but it happened. Next,
Don't ever watch Infinity Pool. It is more extreme than this movie.
Well,
Giant
he'll
factor
have to
of-
watch
Can we do
it when
something?
it's on someone's top 10 next year, and then he has to.
It won't be on mine. I didn't. Really,
Okay.
I mean,
can
it
we
was
just
fine.
can we make an agreement, Scott? Just sitting here, you don't do that to me. Because the only
No,
time
I'm not going to. Again,
don't bring it on
I'm
this
not that
show,
crazy
and don't
about the
bring it
movie.
on Wild Up.
Maybe
and
I'll
we'll be
bring it
fine.
on.
No, I'm not that crazy about the movie. I won't.
Guess who won't be on 2023 movies of the year? Tim Brzakala. You're told 13-year-old to go fuck himself.
I will be with Cocaine
Brian,
Bear. So
That's
yeah.
fair.
Pull me out.
tell us what you. Well, why'd you bring it?
So yeah, I brought Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. This is a movie. It's the only film directed by Tom Stoppard, based on his own play. This is a guy. He's been a playwright and a screenwriter. He's done everything from Terry Gilliam's Brazil to Shakespeare in Love. So I mean, he's done a lot of different stuff. But when he did his own play here, I thought this is kind of his best stuff. I love Shakespeare movie adaptations, whether they're classical versions or modern day updates. I like all that stuff, as well as anything that's even like tangentially connected. In the case of this, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, with his play, he took 2 very minor characters in Hamlet and basically followed their story. Like while the Hamlet story is going on, it kind of follows them on what they're doing when they're off stage. They kind of weave in and out of the story that we know of Hamlet, and it follows them. This is something that was copied by, like, Strange Brew is essentially Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. And Lion King 1.5 is Timon and Pumbaa being Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. It's the same thing. This is where they got it from.
Dig a tunnel, dig a tunnel.
It's kind of, I mean, Dreyfus's
I will kick you out.
Dreyfus's character, the player, even says a line in there by like look at every exit as an entrance somewhere else, and it's kind of where it is. Like when you see their characters go off screen, this is where they're going. This is the adventure they're going on. I think that first and foremost, I love the cast of this movie. I got Tim Roth as technically Guildenstern, and I love most of all, I just love the exasperated looks he gives Gary Oldman's Rosencrantz, just because he signed because Rosencrantz, Gary Oldman is kind of the more dim-witted of the two, and so he gets to have a lot more fun with this part, whereas Tim Roth is just kind of like this, almost kind of the straight man to most of the movie. But I think the chemistry between the two of them is just phenomenal, and this is kind of before both their careers really took off. So I love going back and seeing this role of both of theirs before they really took off. The role of Hamlet is played by Ian Glenn, whom we might know as Jorah Mormont in Game of Thrones.
Or as Maggie calls
him,
him, Captain Friendzone.
Friendzone.
Yeah, it's weird seeing him at like 28 instead of whatever he was, 55 or whatever in Game of Thrones. So it's kind of fun seeing that. Now this movie, it's clearly based on a play. I mean, I think my biggest criticism of the movie is that it is kind of slow paced, especially in the second half. It like really slows down, and I freely admit that. But this is a movie, like I said, based on a play. It's all about kind of the wordplay and the dialogue and the conversations. And taken as like these individual scenes, I really love so much of this movie. I will say I don't love the whole movie, like I said, mostly because of the pacing of it, but I do like it. I mean, from the very beginning, it kind of kicks in this surreal tone. Like the characters don't have any memory from before, like that day before they were sent for by the messenger, and it's kind of because they're in someone else's story. They didn't exist basically before today, and they're kind of coming to grips with their own, like, you know, what is life and what is mortality. They're coming to grips with that kind of thing, and I just kind of love kind of that approach to it, where it's like these are characters in someone else's story. Their lives don't really exist outside of that, and what does that mean to them? I got more to talk about, but I will let everyone else chime in first.
Yeah. So everybody else's thoughts.
Yeah, this is a movie I've been wanting to watch for a while because, like Brian, as someone who studied theater in college, Shakespeare is always something that's interested me, and I've always just thought the concept of taking these two side characters from Hamlet and making movies just sounded really good. And for the most part, I liked it. I think the movie is at its best when it's Rosencrantz and Guildenstern just like talking and having conversations. Like, I think like the movie immediately had me at the beginning where they're just flipping the coin and they're talking about like the odds of just keep on flipping the coin and how that keeps on going down. The cast is great. I think Richard Dreyfuss is a ton of fun as the player and the person that's just like putting on this whole thing. I think Dreyfuss is just one of those guys that I just always love. Ian Glenn is such a fun Hamlet. Introduced when he's just like clucking the chickens is super fun. And like I'll say it, Ian Glenn is a good looking man. Like you see him, it's like, damn, what a fine gentleman that is.
You wouldn't friend zone him.
Yeah. Daenerys, I have no idea what she was doing. Would have taken that man. But yeah, like Brian, I definitely do think my one major issue with this movie is I think the second half of this movie slows down to a point, and I would like that, but I weirdly think the conversations the characters have aren't as engaging as they are in the first half as they are in the second half. I like how it ends, and obviously if you know how Hamlet ends, you know what happens to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, but I do think this movie is a little bit lopsided when it comes to pacing.
Could you say that by the title you know what happens to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern? Hey, I'm your boy Tim. I don't know shit about Hamlet. I started this movie, didn't even know it was about Hamlet. Didn't know it had anything to do with Hamlet until I clicked on Letterboxd to log it, on which I saw Kaleb Koho say, as a big Hamlet fan, I really dug this.
Did you see where he said it was better than the original? By the way, I guess the original being Hamlet.
I referred to Lion King 1.5, honestly.
God, he's so stupid.
I love you, Koho, but man alive.
I'm gonna unfollow him.
I didn't love this. I wanted to. I agree with Brian. The cast, incredible. Dreyfuss is awesome in this. He's doing great stuff, but Tim Roth and Gary Oldman are fantastic. Like, I really love them. And because I didn't know it had anything to do with Hamlet for the first half of the movie, it kind of, I think, maybe even hurt the experience. Because it starts, they don't know like why they're there. They are like,
they're not even sure which is which.
Yeah, they're not sure which. And I thought that was interesting. I was like, oh, is this going to be a thing where they died and they're in the afterlife and they're figuring out like why they died and blah, 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 blah. Like, okay. And then all of a sudden they're somewhere else and there's Hamlet. And I'm like, oh. And then I clicked on the Letterboxd thing and I saw the reviews like, oh, taking two people from Hamlet. I'm like, okay, I get it now. And again, having never seen Hamlet, I've never seen any version of it. You could tell me that I've seen something that is like an homage to it or a spinoff or like something like that. I wouldn't know. Great. See, didn't even know that. So I I did like the movie at the end of the day because the performances were so charming. Like Gary Oldman and Tim Roth were so good. I liked Gary Oldman the best. He was my favorite part of the movie. He's my favorite part in most movies, to be completely honest. We had crossover with him too. Holy shit.
Foreshadowing. I was gonna say foreshadowing.
We had a ton of crossover this episode, gentlemen. But yeah, it didn't click with me 100%. I agree. Maggie and I have talked a lot about the fact that like when movies are based on plays and they don't do anything to expand the movie and it just feels like a play in a movie, it kind of hurts it for me unless it's like super like really well done. Like I can't even think of an example. I don't know, but
Too Good Man.
But that's expanded though. I feel like they do enough to expand that to where it's like super interesting to me. This movie took place in like 4 locations, maybe different like spots. So I don't know. I enjoyed it. Never something I'm gonna watch again.
So I am a pretty big Shakespeare fan as well. Studied in college and stuff. Have seen some plays. So I was interested in this. I didn't really know that much about it. I knew, what the title was. I knew Tom Stoppard, but yeah, I was pretty disappointed with it, to be honest with you. I agree with some of the comments that have been made that I think the dialogue between the two of them is probably the best part. I think when Richard Dreyfuss and the whole theater troupe shows up at any point, it just kind of brings the movie to a screeching halt, honestly. And they do like these long play within a play, which again I understand is in Hamlet, but like it is pretty tough to sit through, honestly, because there's like no dialogue going on. They're just like acting out the plays within a play. It happens a couple of different times, and I understand the significance of it for the plot, but it's just not that super engaging to watch. And I think like the theme bit muddled. Like I think I'd probably like the play, but I think the themes are a little bit muddled. Like it's obviously trying to make some like existential commentary on like what control do we have over our own lives stuff, because like they know what they have to do and what they should be doing, but like they can't do it because they are in this pre-existing universe, right? Like where they are trapped by the characters that have already been written for them, basically. And so there's some commentary about like free will and all that kind of stuff, but I just didn't think that the movie would like, I thought it was muddled. I thought like it just wasn't super engaging enough to like for me to fully lock into those themes. I like the performances well enough. I just think it was kind of dull, honestly. Like I wanted more from this, and it wasn't just the Shakespeare aspect of it. Again, I like Shakespeare. I just like was confused at times. Other times, I just wasn't like interested enough to actually want to try and fully understand what was going on. I think it's just kind of an overly convoluted way to get across some themes that are not too difficult to explain. Again, like about our lack of free will. You're trying to find your purpose in life and all this sort of stuff. Yeah, I can't really fully articulate what about it it was, other than just to say that it never really grabbed me. I mean, the opening scenes I kind of liked. Again, I thought the dialogue was pretty fun. I didn't really like all the comedy either. I think that was part of it. Like I think that a lot of the comedy is just premised on like something happens and then they just kind of stand there like, huh? Like with these looks on their faces, like, what exactly just happened? Like things are happening and they don't fully understand it. Yeah, I don't have much else to say. I was a little disappointed with it.
My thoughts are, I'm the opposite of a Shakespeare guy. Like, if there was one, like, that's me. Like, I don't like Shakespeare really at all. And I know the Lion King is the Hamlet with fur. I get it. They don't talk to me like Shakespeare does. School's forced down my throat. Don't really like it. This movie, very weird for me. Just I'm kind of with Tim. I don't really look into like a movie too much before watching it, especially for Roundtable, because I don't want to. I don't want to see what other people rated it. I don't want to see like how they like what it's all about. I remember getting pulled away from this at first. I got pulled away from it when I first started, and I was grabbing something, and all heads, 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 and they said that like 45 times, and I was like, "Well, this is going to be a movie for Cody. Like this is going to be." Oh, I love both these actors too. But yeah, I think the pacing just really hurt this movie. I think if they do that something different, the comedy when they like the moments that they had were funny at times. Like Tim Roth being the straight man, Gary Oldman just having fun. He seemed like he was having a lot of fun in this movie, like and the characters were. I just wasn't having as much fun as them, and it was making me upset. So overall, I didn't think it was like a complete mess on my end, but it just was as somebody that knows very little, like besides watching Hamlet, I know that will kill people. I just couldn't like fully dive into it. Bill.
So I enjoyed it. I do have similar problems that everybody else did, especially with like I feel it drags in the middle a bit for me. But I love that tennis scene. It's just so much.
Give me questions is amazing.
I could watch that a million times. Although in my research, I am a little sad we don't live on the timeline where Daniel Day-Lewis was the Tim Roth character. I think this would have been a completely different crazy.
And Sean Connery is supposed to be Richard Dreyfuss' character.
Oh my God, that would have been bonkers as hell. But a favorite like subgenre of mine is taking well-established stories and then looking at it through like a completely different angle. Like one of my favorite comics growing up was Marvels, which was like, hey, here's the Marvel universe from a photographer that works at like a newspaper. Or a personal favorite book of mine is Lamb, the Gospel According to Christ's Best Friend Bill. Yeah, like, so I love this kind of stuff. So this was a joy of like them getting thrust into all the craziness of Hamlet. And then all of a sudden we go back to them going, yeah, that conversation didn't go well, did it? What the hell just happened? It's just so I was a fan of that, but like everybody else, it definitely like just kind of stops. And then it's just a lot of like, all right, let's keep it moving. But overall, I honestly think we should have let Gary Oldman do more comedies. He looks like he's having a good old time. Maybe we should let him have good times every now and again, is all I'm saying. Because he is just an absolute delight to watch. And Tim Roth has zero time for it, and it's just so much fun. Like, yeah, it is great. Anytime it's like not really just them, I feel like the movie suffers because of it. Because I feel like it's like we got to get the Hamlet stuff out of the way.
I think I wanted to understand the meta commentary a little bit more that was going on with the players and Richard Dreyfuss and all of them. Like I was just like I felt like I was a little bit at a distance from what they were trying to say about like the artifice of the play within a play and how does that relate to life, I guess. Yeah, it just kind of again, I just think those scenes kind of brought the movie to a halt when they came around.
Yeah, no, I picked the movie. I'm going to brought it here, and I had not watched this movie in years. And I remember thinking that the second half definitely kind of slowed down in pace and stuff like that. And I watched this time, and I kind of felt the same way I remembered feeling about it. Where, like I said, it's more individual scenes, like the Game of Questions. I love the Game of Questions. There's the running gag where basically Gary Oldman is just stumbling across scientific discoveries from gravity and momentum with the pendulums and the pinwheel and the water displacement from the tub and all that kind of stuff. It has nothing to do with the movie, but it's just kind of a fun running gag, and apparently invented the sandwich in the biplane apparently too. But it's just weird things like that. I enjoyed it, but it is mostly all about the dialogue and those kind of scenes and the interaction between the two main characters. So I agree that anytime where it's like kind of focusing on something else, whether it be the players or the Hamlet scenes or whatever, it definitely is not as good as it is when those two people are on screen having fun.
All right, I think it's time to get scores unless anybody wants to say anything more. All right, Brian, what's your rating?
Yeah, I mean, I brought it, but I fully acknowledge the flaws that it does have. I give it 3.5.
Okay. Scott.
I gave it 2.5. You know, it has a few fun moments in there, enough, you know, in the chemistry to make it not a complete, you know, waste of my time. But I was disappointed. I did want more from it.
Yeah, I'm also 2.5. It just didn't cross over that barrier for me. Tim.
I gave it 2. Which makes me sad because the last time Brian brought the hard way and that movie fucking rules. But
it does, yes.
But yeah, I think that's again part of my ignorance, not knowing. I felt like I was on the outside of the joke the whole movie, so maybe one day I'll like it more.
I think it's also fair. 2.5, and Brian gave it 3.5, so we're in the right company at that point. So he at least acknowledged himself. He didn't walk around 5. Payson.
I'm with Brian on this one. 3.5. Had fun.
Bill.
I go 3 on this one. The parts that are good are great, and the parts that are not so great are just like, they're not terrible though. So yeah, it's worth a watch just for the 3 main people, because they're all fantastic.
That is fair. That is fair. Okay, we are going to Payson's movie. Payson, why did you bring Dead Presidents, which is a interesting time? Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I had last year for trivia, I had watched Menace to Society for the first time, which is a movie I really, really liked. And I wanted to watch Dead Presidents, but I just couldn't get to it. And full disclosure, this is the first time I had watched Dead Presidents. I was bringing the movie I had never seen before, which I know is always like a little risky. And I thought it was interesting looking at like, first off, the budget. Like, this movie was almost 3 times as expensive as Menace to Society. Both not like super expensive, but you can definitely see like the Hughes brothers had a bit of a budget like up. And this is also just a movie I've heard in like conversations with like slightly underseen movies from the 90s that like everyone agrees like should have gotten more attention. And after watching the movie, I fully see why. Anyone who knows me knows that I love movies that just try a ton of different things. And I think the number one thing I love about this movie is all the genres it tackles. Like, you have, like, I walked in this movie thinking, like, oh, this is just going to be a cool heist movie. And that's only, like, the last act of this movie. You get a war movie in there, and you get a really cool coming-of-age movie in there. It's set in the 70s, so you have, like, that grimy feel. And, yeah, you have a really, really cool cast. This is the second Chris Tucker movie we have that we're going to be talking about tonight. And I'll be honest, like, this is probably the most, like, what's the word? I think the most, like, underacting Chris Tucker I think I've ever seen. Like, except for maybe, like, Silverlining's Playbook. Like,
that's what I was going to say.
Not, like, not like he's not like. I'm familiar with Chris Tucker, like, really overacting and just, like, going for it. And this one, he's playing, like, what seems like a regular person. Yeah, Rush Hour, jeez. Brett Ratner is a shit human being and makes shit movies.
Well, that wasn't where I was going with that, but okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I think this is a really, really great movie, and I'll talk about it later. Just fuck Brett Ratner.
Oh my god! Okay, that's my favorite thing about this community. When they mention somebody, it's like it also like goes into this. Like, yeah, believe me, you can.
I love this movie. Screw you, Batman.
X2 is really good, and Superman Returns is underrated.
Okay. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, full disclosure, I fell asleep watching this movie. So I didn't get the full experience. I will say that. That being said, this was a depressing film.
Yes.
No joy to be had. One macaw put it very eloquently. She watched the whole thing. She did not fall asleep. She logged it. You can go see her score now. It was a very... The problems, like, okay, so this movie highlighted issues with the African American community that are still happening today. That's a problem. Like, the fact that this guy felt he had no choices other than to go into the military, and then got so fucked up because of the military and the PTSD he suffered from going into the military that he turned to crime, drugs, whatever. And again, that's not just the African American community, but like, again, in the area that I live, it's like a big issue that like he had to turn to these terrible things and basically threw his life away. Like, it's fucking sad and depressing and rough. So as a look into the world of these types of people really heartbreaking and interesting, and we need to do better as a society of helping people. But that being said, overall, fucking what's dude from the beginning of Nope that's in everything?
Keith David.
Keith David. Awesome. Love Keith David. He's great. But again, disclaimer that I did fall asleep. I didn't get the full movie, so I feel, and it was the last movie I had to watch. I watched it today, and so I missed a lot of it, and so I don't think I have the right to give my full on it. But it didn't really do anything for me other than the fact of what I've said, of just saying that clearly the directors are talented. Book of Eli slaps. And I yield my time, as Andrew Barr would say.
So what I will say is, I think that's regardless of in general, I think it tugged on a social thing that happens in this country a lot, is that, military, that's the way, will help you all through while you're doing it, but once you get out, there's no actual help for you.
Yeah.
There's very limited help or resources for some people, and especially in cities or areas that just are underfunded and just don't have the thing. So this movie is just super depressing in general, just overall, because it's just a harsh thing. My only problem with the movie is it told me this story, but it Payson loves a movie that throws everything in it. For me, it's you took everything on my plate at Thanksgiving, and I don't like all my food mixed together, and you decided to mix it all and be this is all it's all happened at once. I get his life, I jumped through it very fast, but I think that was I don't know. I again, make it longer. I don't think that's a solution, but there was a lot that could have been sped up in certain areas that we still got those messages across of what happened to him instead of going through it. So that was my only takeaway. It's super depressing, super hard to watch. Worst heist in the history of heist movie of all them trying to do it. You can clearly definitely see they're understanding. But it was just I thought there were great things about it, but I don't think the execution was as strong as I wanted it to be, because I think it told a very important message. It just lost me at points because we're going through everything. And yes, it's crazy to see Chris Tucker not high-pitched, at all. And if Terrence Howard said "man" one more time in this movie, I was going to lose it. He said it every time. So yeah, but overall, an important story. I think I would have never seen this movie. I think it's never popped up on my radar. So interesting. Everybody else?
Yeah, you shouldn't watch Hustle and Flow if you don't like hearing Terrence Howard say "man."
Yeah,
no, there's more man.
This is where it all began, though.
Yeah. No, I mean, I had seen this movie for the first time 5 years ago, because I didn't see it when it first came out, and I think it was because it came out after that glut of Boys in the Hood, Menace to Society, Juice, all that kind of stuff was coming out, and this just seemed like just another one of those. So I never watched it until about 5 years ago, and I didn't love it. I thought it was just okay. I rewatching it now. I think I actually did like it more than I did then. I still don't love the movie, but I think my rating for it has gone up. I do like the fact that it kind of changes gears as it goes, how it does kind of have, it's the coming of age, then it's the war story, then it's kind of the crime heist film. I like that about it, because I think any one of those stories as a whole film, I don't think I would have enjoyed, because my thing about it is each one of those stories, I think, has been done better, much better many other times. The coming of age was, I enjoyed it. I thought it was fairly well done, but some things about it, especially some of the acting and things like that, was a little, cheesy. The war story, obviously there's some great war films out there. This obviously doesn't measure up to those, but they're just doing one section of their film in that, and I thought it was good for this film, but I wouldn't want to see a whole war film done by this group. And then the crime heist, actually, honestly, it's the title of the film, it's the cover of the movie and stuff, and yet it feels like an afterthought in this movie. The actual heist, the actual crime part of it seems like it's just kind of oh yeah, we forgot we got to do this heist at the end. And I mean, even that part was decently done. But again, I wouldn't want to see a whole film centered around that based on what I saw. So while I didn't love the movie, I think my rating has gone up this time.
So I kind of love this movie. I had seen it when it came out, so this played big into my formative years. And because I was huge on the Hughes brothers, especially after Menace to Society, I will say Menace to Society is the better film of these two, bar none. Like that is just an amazingly good film. But I also forgot how violent this movie is because this movie is super violent. So especially in the middle part where I was like, God damn, like I did not remember all of this. And the thing I do enjoy most, I think there's certain directors that should just work with certain actors because I think they just kind of get them. Sort of like trying to think, like obviously like Scorsese, De Niro, like they just know, like Scorsese knows where to put him, or even like Tarantino, like Samuel Jackson just knows exactly what he is, like exactly what to get. And I feel the same way with the Hughes brothers and Lorenz Tate because I think he has turned out the best performances of his career into these guys. And it is really because it all hinges on him. And I think he's doing a real good job, especially in the beginning. You can definitely tell he has no idea. He is very naive and he plays it naive. And then you just watch his descent from there after going to Vietnam and then just what an awful person he becomes by the end. And yeah, Chris Tucker is really good in this. And God, who doesn't love Keith David though? Seriously, like top notch. Like, every movie's improved with Keith David.
I forgot to mention, we've been talking about all the crossover too. The girl who played Fresh's sister is in this movie.
The Bush, right?
Yeah. So she's in this too. So we had more crossover than we can even imagine.
So I was excited to watch this. It's been like on my watch list for a little bit. I've been curious about it. I've heard good things. I think what especially what Cody and Brian said, like, comes down to how you will feel about the movie, which is, how do you feel about the fact that it changes genres, changes, what it's about 3 different times. I liked parts of it. Other parts I did feel it was overstuffed in the end. Like, I do think it's a good movie. I do like it. I definitely give it a positive review, because I definitely think the strongest message is the military message, and black men, the circumstances which led them to fight in the war, what they were asked to do in the war, and then since what they experienced after getting out of the war, and this whole central question it keeps coming back to is like, what were they fighting for, right? Like why were what cause were black soldiers in particular fighting for? This wasn't their war, right? This wasn't, they weren't invested whatsoever in the stated purpose for this conflict, whatever that may be. And, yet they went out and performed atrocities in the name of, America, put their lives on the line in the name of America. And the second they're out, what do they get in return, right? Like nothing. But then, it tries to be a crime movie. It tries to be a commentary on, the circumstances which lead people to commit crime. It also tries to be about drugs and, again, Chris Tucker's character, that's a lot of what's going on there, and the circumstances which lead people to become addicted to drugs. It feels like it's just trying to tackle all of the, like, urban drama, like, touchstones, right, in one movie. And like, again, it's kind of going down the checklist. Some of them work, some of them I wish a little bit more time had been spent on that. It's like, I am all for a good, like, story about, like, systemic crime and cycles of crime, and how economic situation, like socioeconomic conditions, lead people into a life of crime, like to where they have no other choice. But then they're also talking about the Vietnam War, like, the end, the judge is sentencing him and is talking about, well, you're not a Marine or whatever, like you didn't uphold the values of the Marines or whatever, that you were fighting in a fake war and all this stuff. Which is almost like commentary on masculinity. Also, again, there's just so many ideas going on here, all interesting ideas, all ideas worth being explored. Just some of them I think are explored with more depth and nuance than others. So it's a very interesting movie. I enjoyed watching it. I think Lorenz Tate is great. He has a real like innocence to him, which I think is perfect for this character. I just wish there had been a little bit more precision in how the story was told.
The thing I really love about that last scene is I think it really tackles like the difference as to how the veterans of World War II were viewed versus the veterans of Vietnam were viewed, where like obviously the people that fought in World War II were viewed as heroes, and Vietnam it was way more complicated. But regardless of what you think, I think just the way they were treated was horrible, and I think that last scene really, really tackles that.
Yeah, I think the basic.
Sorry, I was just gonna say Martin Sheen. What the fuck?
Yeah. Great.
I just think it's also just really interesting. Yeah, I'm with the main thing of Scott is like, I think they wanted to say so much, but didn't have enough time to say all of what they wanted to say at times.
And all of the ideas are connected. Like I understand the connections that they are drawing between all of them. It's just some of them feel more fleshed out than others. Like I don't really know how else to say it other than that.
And Payson, this is a first time watch for you. You hadn't seen it prior.
I had not seen it prior. No.
Yeah, and it's happened a few times on the show, and sometimes you walk away with movies you really enjoy. All right, we'll give score. Payson, first time watch, but what's your score?
I'm gonna give it. I honestly really, really love this movie. I would give it a 4.5 out of 5. It vibed with me.
I'm at 3. I liked a lot. I didn't like some, so it seems like it's right in the middle. Bill,
I'd say 3.5. So it is a very good movie. It is not a great movie. I know the Hughes brothers have made better films, but this is a really good one. So,
Brian,
3.
Scott,
3.5. I liked it.
And I guess since you don't want to give it a full rating, or are you going to give it a rating?
I gave it a 3 just because there were parts of it that I missed. Maggie filled me in, but even still, 3.
Okay. That works. All right, and now we're on to our last movie for the night. The Fifth Element. Tim, why'd you bring The Fifth Element?
Last time I was on the show, I brought 12 Monkeys, a Bruce Willis sci-fi film that I bought on 4K Blu-ray that I had never seen before from the 90s. This time, I brought a 90s sci-fi Bruce Willis film that I bought on 4K that I had never seen before. And ladies and gentlemen, sometimes people make mistakes. This is one of those times. Nope. That's going to be a nope from me, dog. I feel like I'm on the right side of history here. I've always heard like this is such an influential film.
You can see it.
I Luc Besson, say what you will, I like more than I dislike. Everyone hated Valerian. I dug the shit out of that movie. I had a great fucking time with that one. Yeah. I didn't like Lucy, but his newest, I think Anna, was that his newest one?
Yeah, Anna. I was like, it was another woman's name. What was that one? And that's a fake movie. That movie doesn't exist.
I watched it for the first time like a year ago and actually kind of liked it. Like, didn't hate it.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, I was fair. And I watched The Professional for the first time like 3 or 4 months ago and dug it. So I was looking forward to this. But once again, I felt a weird sense of, oh no, when Bruce Willis just started kissing Mila Jovovich without consent or, asking anything. Just did, oh, you were unconscious and I wanted to kiss you. I'm sorry. That
At least ask her in her own language. I mean,
and then he gets a gun to his head. That's what you get, Willis. Don't do that.
So I watched this directly after watching Possessor. And
that's a palate cleanse.
And
I did the same thing.
the start of the movie I dug. There are things about it I really liked. The overall concept of the film I was into. The visuals I was into. It took so long to get going. It was an hour in before they were like, oh, here's the mission. Here's what we're doing. And I'm going to be honest. I forgot that Chris Tucker was in this when I picked it. He's real bad in this movie. My God. Bucky had a rough time watching this one with me. He loved Possessor. But when we got to Fifth Element, he was like, Papa, let's play with the ball. What are we doing here? No, I feel bad because, well, I don't feel bad because I got to watch a movie I had never seen before, which is always a good thing in my book. And I'm glad I got to see a movie that is, at the end of the day, it is a movie that is revered by a lot of people. A lot of people really love this movie. But it did not work for me. I can get from the vibe of the rest of the crowd. It might not work for everyone else. But for me, as someone who had never seen it, it just really didn't work for me. But I will also say, on a side note, I've been watching a lot of Bruce Willis this year after his sad news that has like come out recently. I've just kind of, and with Die Hard coming into fandom and stuff, I watch all the Die Hard movies, and I've been trying to just like verse myself in a lot of his movies I hadn't seen before. And I loved him in the movie. I think he's really fun, and I like what he's doing. And I just like seeing Bruce Willis give a shit, and not only give a shit, but actually like look like he's having fun. And he looks like he's having fun. I know I said like maybe an hour ago that Gary Oldman's the best part of every movie he's in, but he was kind of rough in this. Did not enjoy his performance. He's doing something weird, which granted might be a Luc Besson thing more than a Gary Oldman thing, but Gary Oldman is awesome in The Professional. Like, so good in that. So, I don't know, man. I'm not going to say my rating yet, but I was really disappointed because, again, science fiction, and again, weird science fiction. Like, I really like Valerian. Like, I think that movie is so underrated. And this, to me, just, like, didn't work at all. Maybe I was just in the wrong headspace because I had just had a bad Whopper from Burger King and watched Possessor right before it. But I don't know. I was not into this.
Just to get something positive out of you, though, it did look beautiful in 4K, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
It
100%. Again, the look of the movie, the visuals for its time, incredible. Incredible. And I actually like Mila Jovovich in the movie. I think she is actually doing some fun stuff. But the thing that, like, again, the whole movie, I was kind of... The thing that sealed the deal, though, is it did the James Bond, Roger Moore, he's fucking someone, and we have to make a joke about it at the end of the movie moment. I wanted to end it all. He's just like they're just we need more than 5 more minutes or whatever they say. Like, oh, the president's here to talk. It was out of a James Bond movie. It blew my mind.
You're absolutely right about that, honestly.
It blew my mind. It was literally plucked out of The Spy Who Loved Me. Like, plucked out. It blew my mind.
Except for it was in The Spy Who Loved Me, it was funny.
You're correct.
No, was
no, in Moon
is it funny here? No.
Okay, so I think I can be wrong, but I think there's 2 people for sure that enjoyed it more than some others. So I'm going to pass it to Payson and Brian because I think they're the 2. Bill may also be in the camp, but I'm not getting that vibe yet. And he said he hated one movie, and I don't think he said he hated anything yet. So this could be, I'm not sure. But Brian, I'm going to pass to Brian. For Brian, your thoughts on rewatching The Fifth Element?
Lilu. Multipass. No, yeah, no, this is a movie. I've seen this movie so many times over the years because, I mean, this is a movie. I remember when it first came out. This is like, back before the internet was big and there wasn't like marketing. I was like in a theater and I saw a poster from the director, The Professional, starring Bruce Willis and sci-fi. I'm like, what the hell is this movie? And then I went and saw a trailer for it. Just that kind of came out of nowhere.
And that's awesome.
And I was sold immediately because The Professional is, I think, a phenomenal movie. It's in my top 25 now of all time. It keeps rising whenever I watch that movie.
Great fucking movie.
More and more. And since then, Luc Besson, I think like you, I liked more than I've disliked from him. It's weird because I seem to like all the ones Tim didn't like and vice versa. So that's a little weird thing there, but and he's got his personal life things, which I won't get into, but I don't judge people. I don't judge movies by I'm not getting into that stuff.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
This is a movie. I mean, I love the look of it. I love the originality of it. I do think the tone of it does get too cartoonish at times. That's why it's never going to be a 5-star movie for me, because there are definitely things about it that get very cartoonish and silly. And I think that's just Luc Besson's thing, and it happens. But like Gary Oldman is playing over the top. But again, I like seeing Gary Oldman have fun. I like seeing him get to do stuff like this. And now he's doing a weird, kind of Southern accent and stuff. And that's a lot. Things like that. But Bruce Willis, I think Tim already touched on this. It's fun to go back and see Bruce Willis. When he not only cared, but when he was clearly having fun. He had a personality, a sense of humor. He actually looked legitimately happy, and he's smiling in movies instead of just like the little smirk he gave in his later films. And yes, the whole paycheck VOD movie section of his career, his last 10 years or so, you can write off to he's just trying to make some money while he still could, for his family or whatever. But there was still, even before that, there was a lot of movies that he just didn't give a shit. But this is back in the era when I loved Bruce Willis. I mean, I used 90s Bruce Willis action movies as a strength many times when I was playing in Warzone, because I just loved him in this era. He was tons of fun. Mila Jovovich, I'm not even joking, I think was worthy of an Oscar nomination for supporting actress in this movie. I mean, in a year when Jung Cusack can get nominated for In and Out, she can get nominated for this. I mean, I thought not only the humorous sides, but I think the emotional sides, I thought she played a lot of that stuff very well. She was a lot of fun, but she was also, played the drama of it. I liked Mila Jovovich a lot in this movie. I think the score is a lot of fun. I mean, it kind of is all over the place. There's many different styles mixed in here, especially when they use like Ruby Rod. It almost has like a Prince sound to it, and that's not an accident because Prince was supposed to play that role originally. But let me rephrase that. They wanted Prince to play that role. He wouldn't do it, and so they got Chris Tucker to basically kind of do a Prince impression, but he goes way more over the top with it, of course. And he's another aspect of it that definitely gets a little too cartoony. I get it, but I think it works for the character because it's a futuristic, he's a bombastic, personality he's supposed to have. It's beautifully filmed. I think the effects are great for its time, especially it's not a franchise. It's not even like a major director or anything at the time, and especially his only film before that. His U.S. film had been The Professional, which wasn't like an effects sci-fi thing. I will say the first 20 minutes or so is a little bit slow until like Lilu and Corbin first show up. But then from there on, the movie just takes off for me. And I love this movie. Like I said, it's never going to be 5 stars for me, but I love this movie.
I will say before everyone else gets into it, I do love the fact that like this is the type of movie that I can watch and absolutely understand why Brian loves it. But it just doesn't work for me. And I love that because it's like one movie that we see differently, but like that's the great thing about most movies and pretty much everything is that like with movies, some people love it, some people hate it. And I love that Brian, like the story you told, like going into a theater, seeing the poster from the director, like that. I love that. That's awesome, man.
It's like when I talk about A24 and Neon, I don't want them to not exist. I just know there's other people that love that stuff, and I'm glad for them.
Yeah,
not for me.
No, I'm glad you love it. That's awesome.
Cody, you're muted.
Because when I think, we can't get Prince, who do we get next? Chris Tucker.
Payson, you were positive. You seem positive. Go for it.
Look at me. This movie's kind of made for me. No, I adore this movie with all my heart. Just like we've said, this movie is just, you can see the influence it has had on other sci-fi movies. Like, I wish I could have been next to George Lucas in a theater, just watching the like chase through the buildings and just being like, yep, I'm going to rip that off for Attack of the Clones, because he absolutely did that. And anyone who has seen both movies would never deny that. No, I love all the little details in it. Like, one of the details I love on this watch was I love just like the Chinese food truck guy that Corbin interacts with a few times, and just like the camera lingers on it just a little too long, and you're just like, I want a whole movie just based on this guy and him just giving deliveries throughout this world. That is how unique and cool this world is. I couldn't find my shirt, but I have a Flossed in Paradise shirt, which is obviously a Fifth Element reference. All the characters, I adore Gary Oldman in this movie. He's having so much fun when he's showing off the cool gun, and he just looks at the camera and he's just like, my favorite. Just the choice he makes is just such a unique choice, but it just weirdly works. Same thing with like Chris Tucker as Ruby Rod. Like, it's so over the top, and the second he comes in, he just like completely dominates the movie. But you're like, I should be hating myself. Why am I not? And I think it's just because Luc Besson just completely understands the tone. There's a quote that Ruby says in this movie that I still just use like out of context today, where like the flight attendant says, you must return your seat to the full upright position. And he just says, I don't want one position, honey. I want all the positions. And it's just so good. And yeah, just Mila Jovovich is so incredible. I don't know how you couldn't be endeared to that character. She lands on this earth. She has no idea what's going on. And just like Corbin's like, I guess I'll do it. Didn't I really have anything better to do this day? And I love characters like that are just like, I may as well help you because what else am I going to do? But yeah, just the visuals, the humor. Like, I totally get why people wouldn't enjoy this movie.
I get it.
Yeah, like some movies I'm like, oh, how can you not? But like this one, like if as someone who loves it, I can totally see why someone would hate it. But like, I adore this movie just for its originality and creativity alone.
If you guys have ever worked in sound or been around sound equipments, when they do like the feedback sound, where like the things, I found feedback the movie. It's called The Fifth Element for me. Everything coming out gave me the stop. I don't know. Like Kirk always gets on to me about The Departed and the Boston accents going from here to not existent anymore. This one, I just wish they'd stop the accents at some point. Like, it's like there's just too much. Like, Gary Oldman, I thought was ridiculous. I thought the overall, the plot, everything about it. Chris Tucker is by far the most annoying human being in this movie, especially. And I've always heard that from this. And when I watched it at 16, I said, "This movie sucks. I will never watch this movie again." And then Tim brings it on to the round table, and then I have to rewatch it. Yeah, I didn't like any of like the real direction. I think she's fine in the movie. Oscar, I think she's a little crazy. I think Bruce Willis having fun. That's great. I like the world that they're trying to build, but I just want to get out of the world as fast as possible with everybody that's in it. Yeah, it just wasn't a hit for me at 15. It definitely isn't a hit for me now. I just need to realize the movies that say like this movie shaped cinema, or this movie, if we didn't have this would happen. All those movies that have ever been labeled like that at times for me, just a giant like stamp of no thanks. Like, I don't
really
like the
say
Matrix.
That about the Fifth Element? Do people really say like that this is some revolutionary influential movie?
There are people that talk of this movie at a very high regard.
Well, no, I know that there's people who love the movie, but do people really say this is some massively influential thing? I feel like
made
I haven't
Milli
heard that.
Vanilli a platinum Grammy-winning artist. People are fucking stupid.
The Star Wars prequels came out 2 years later, and Lucas just in this movie was just like, "Yep, gonna take that, gonna take that, gonna take that."
Well, this movie needed more pod racing.
Those are universally regarded as garbage. To be clear,
not by everyone.
No,
majority.
By most people.
We'll go Scott and Bill. Scott and Bill, how are you guys feeling on this movie?
So I put this movie on, and I had a completely open mind. Like, I thought I might actually like this. Like, this is, a sort of auteur. Like, it's, this. He has a vision. It's like a genre type thing, but it's original and, going to have cool visuals and creative and everything. And I was watching the movie. I was paying attention to the movie. I was just, watching the movie
Is
like
this one
everybody
you
else.
fell asleep during?
No.
Oh.
I don't fall asleep during movies, but that didn't mean to be a shot. I just meant that I literally do.
No,
I
didn't take it that
No,
way.
I just thought it was great
Anyway.
timing to say to the person that did fall asleep during movies.
We get like an hour and 20 minutes into the movie, and they're at like the opera house or whatever. And I'm sitting there, and it just dawns on me. I was like, I have no idea what is happening in this movie. Like, I've been watching this movie for 80 minutes. I genuinely don't know, like, who these people are. Like, what are they trying to do? Like, I was like, this movie has just gone in one ear and out the other for me. Like, that is kind of how I ended up feeling. Like, I was just very confused about the whole setup of it. It's just, Chris Tucker talking a million miles an hour about God knows what. I thought Bruce Willis was good. Like, he was definitely in his, his classic, iconic Bruce Willis era. But, like, I hated all of the Lilu stuff. Honestly, like, I can't deal with, like, the alien language and, her like baby talking basically, and then them having a romance, and like I couldn't deal with it. But also they're overly sexualizing her and stuff. It's just like it's kind of cringy. But yeah, more than anything, I was just baffled about what was happening in this movie. Like the world is fine, is cool. Like it could have been, it could have been in a good movie. Like again, I liked Bruce Willis. Okay, like it's a good role for him, but like this movie is just a whole lot of pretty colors and nothing, honestly, to me ultimately. Also, Tiny Lister playing the president was what? That was wild. Yeah, sorry, I did not care for it.
Here we go, Bill.
Okay. I saw this movie when it came out, and I remember being very excited for the same reasons Brian described. And that is where our paths diverged. Is when I first saw this movie, I was like, what the entire fuck was any of that? I didn't understand any of it. I'm like, what the fuck's going on? And I pretty much abandoned it. I never went back. So it's been over, God knows, 30 years. So I'm like, whatever. So it comes up, and I'm like, I swore I'd never watch it. And I go to Fiance Knows. I'm like, all right, I'm going to be on a show. I got to watch a bunch of movies. I got to watch Possessor. She's like, what the fuck? I'm like, okay, we got to watch Fresh. She's like, what the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? Oh, and The Fifth Element. Fucking yes. I'm like, all right, well, I know which one we're going to watch first. So I was like, we'll get that out of the way. Let's just do it. And I pop it on. I will say, I didn't hate it as much as I did when I was younger. I still don't like it, to be clear. There's things I appreciate more. Actually, she likes it less now because, like, we're an hour in. She's like, I feel like this movie's very boring. I'm like, I feel like it's taking forever to get everything going. Yes, but totally forgot Zeus was in this and the president. I was like, fucking, that rules. Okay. Fucking, it was also nice seeing Brian James just be like a human being, dude, because he's always like bad guy or whatever. And he's just like a normal guy. I don't know. And that's fun. The designs of like a lot of the aliens are spectacular. The effects, I was like, Jesus Christ, these actually still hold up, like a lot of this stuff. That having been said, every acting choice in this one felt wrong to me and was the wrong one. And I'm like, I don't know how the hell you had all these great people and none of them made the correct choice on anything. What the fuck went wrong here for me? I don't know. Also, Cody, remember how you said you were like, oh my God, they're beating in the whole fucking metaphor with the chess. Do you want to know what the fifth element is? Do you want to know what the fifth element is? I bet you'll never. It's fucking love. Do you get it? Do you get it? Do you get it? Like, I'm like, well, fucking Jesus Christ.
Wait, love, the theme of the 2014 film Interstellar?
Do not mention these films.
Jesus.
Yeah, this is so much better than Interstellar. Interstellar is
right, of course.
It's probably better than Interstellar.
Interstellar is a masterpiece. I was just making a joke.
It's like they told Gary Oldman, your character's name is Jean Baptiste, whatever, Emmanuel Zorg, and he was like, say no more. I've got this. Like that was
like
that was.
Elvis
He's
on
doing
fire.
the rooster. He's doing the rooster from Looney Tunes. Well, I'll say. I got
I
a
also-
flamethrower here.
We're thinking of
I
Knives
love-
Out.
Do you know what makes me laugh every time in a movie? Mom jokes.
What?
I love a good mom joke. So Bruce Willis talking to his mom on the phone. Mom, I'm fucking busy, Mom. Sorry. No,
Also, like,
That's a Tater Tot?
I didn't mention it, but like the whole Diva Plava Lagunas fight, like top 50 movie scenes of all time.
which
Yes.
one?
Also, I did forget. Fucking Tricky was in this. I was like, holy shit! That was a nice little like blast from the past.
Tim, the action scene one, like the opera.
Oh yeah, no, that was very cool. It was a good scene.
All right. Oh,
yeah.
go ahead. Sorry.
No, I mean, I was going to reiterate that I do think from a technical standpoint, awesome for the time that it was. I just did not vibe with the story or the characters. I also hate that I just said vibe. So
You did. Can you say mid for me? Okay. Tim, it was your movie. What do you give it?
2 stars. 2 stars from 10.
Brian.
Glad I watched it though. I will say, I'm glad I watched
We'll bump those numbers up.
Given the day, it's gonna go as high as 4.5 stars for me, but for now I'm gonna settle at 4.
Scott, I'm gonna guess 4.5.
Look, I just want to say I'm not necessarily opposed to movies where I don't understand what's happening. There are plenty of movies I like that are like that. No, I understand what's going on with Possessor, but I just the vibes were off for me. Like if you're not going to have like that I understand what's going on, like you need to at least have good vibes. The vibes were horrendous for me throughout this movie, so 2 stars.
Payson.
You throwing the 5er, Payson?
Just do it. If you want to, do it. Own it.
It's your kind of movie.
No, I had 4.5 written down. When I watched this, I told myself I wasn't going to inflate anything to piss anyone off. This is legit a 4.5 star movie. I enjoy it to the level that I would enjoy a 5-star movie, but I think I do have to be honest with. I'm not into the ironic 5-star rating. Like this to me is like it's a 4.5 star rated movie that I just adore with every fiber of my being.
What is an ironic 5-star rating?
Like Spence rating Batman Returns 5 stars,
or me anytime I give something 12 out of 5 stars.
Spence rating like Twilight 5 stars, Koho rating Cars 5 stars. Anyone
but that's not ironic. Koho honestly believes that about Cars.
Well, he's an idiot. Like
you said, not me. Bill.
1 star. And for
Wow.
my review, 1 star I'm going to give it. And for my review will simply be IRBWTLB. I'd rather be watching The Last Boy Scout.
I can't argue with that.
Ain't that?
There you go. That's a fucking Bruce Willis.
I won't argue with that point because that's even better.
I'm just saying how you talked about it. I did not expect 1 star.
Not even at all. Yeah, no. I was expecting
2.5.
It went up from a half star. So there you go.
2.5. Wow.
Well, I'm trying to get better with my reviews. I don't think a lot of my half stars are half stars. I don't believe my 1 stars are 1 star. I'm trying to work over my. I think I was a little too harsh at the beginning. I think there are things to be had from the movie. I think that's a fun. Will it ever cross like me watching it again? No, unless it's. I don't have to. I've rewatched it.
So you're saying that when Koho gave Rise of Skywalker a half star, that's not earned?
Oh no, that's
there
that movie's horseshit.
That's earned.
We can't talk about that at this point because it's not on the show. But man, if somebody brought that may be a correct rating.
I'll bring it next time. 4-star movie.
You're not coming back. Okay, so 1. Yeah, don't do that. 1, thank you, Payson and Bill, for being on, and Tim coming back. Scott, Brian, my partners in crime on the show. Next month, I don't have the full panel built at where we're speaking right now. Kaleb Boatman is returning. That is one that was asked. I told him he could be back on. So he will be here. 1 other. I don't know if we'll probably just make it back to 5. But thank you all for being on. We'll catch you next time. RRR.